In the serene suburb of Willow Creek, Laura Harper and her son Ethan were the epitome of a perfect family until a chilling secret unraveled. Laura, a devoted nurse, hid a sinister past as Claire Voss, a fugitive con artist. When Daniel Kline, a mysterious stranger, arrived in town, Laura's carefully crafted world teetered on the edge. She convinced Ethan, her loyal 17-year-old, to commit an unthinkable act in the shadowy woods behind their home. What drove a mother to manipulate her son into murder? And how far would Ethan go to protect her? Dive into a twisted tale of betrayal and deception that will leave you questioning how well you know those closest to you. In the tranquil suburb of Willow Creek, nestled among manicured lawns and cul-de-sacs, the Harper family was a beacon of suburban virtue. Laura Harper, a 42-year-old single mother, raised her 17-year-old son, Ethan, in a charming two-story home with white shutters and a rose garden that bloomed vibrantly each spring. Laura, a nurse at the local hospital, was known for her tireless work ethic, often pulling double shifts to ensure Ethan had everything he needed: new soccer cleats, top-tier laptop for school, and private tutoring for his AP classes. Neighbors admired her dedication, often seeing her wave cheerfully as she left for work in her navy scrubs, her auburn hair tied neatly in a bun. Ethan, a lanky teenager with his mother's green eyes, was the golden boy of Willow Creek High. He aced his exams, captained the soccer team, and spent weekends volunteering at the animal shelter, where he'd bottle-feed orphaned kittens with a tenderness that melted hearts. The Harpers' bond seemed unbreakable. Laura attended every soccer game, her cheers echoing across the field. And Ethan often mowed the lawn or fixed the porch swing to help his mother. They were the family others envied, the kind featured in community newsletters with headlines like "Willow Creek's Finest." But beneath this polished exterior, cracks were forming. Laura's devotion to Ethan bordered on obsession. She monitored his phone, vetted his friends, and insisted he check in hourly when he wasn't home. Social circles shrank as friends grew frustrated with his inability to hang out without Laura's approval. By his junior year, he had only a handful of acquaintances, none close enough to notice his growing unease. At home, Laura's rules were rigid: no late nights, no unsupervised outings, no questioning her decisions. Ethan complied, his loyalty to his mother absolute. Though his once sparkling eyes began to dull, the first sign of trouble came in the fall of 2024, when a neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, noticed Ethan slipping out of the house at midnight. His silhouette moved swiftly across the backyard, disappearing into the dense woods behind their property. Mrs. Callahan, peering through her kitchen window, assumed he was meeting friends. But the frequency of these outings, 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, struck her as odd. Ethan always returned before dawn, his sneakers caked with mud, his face pale and drawn. She mentioned it to Laura at a neighborhood barbecue, expecting a laugh or explanation. But Laura's smile tightened, and she changed the subject. The town remained blissfully unaware, but the seeds of something sinister had been planted. The woods behind Willow Creek were a sprawling tangle of pine and oak, their shadows swallowing the moonlight. Locals avoided the area, spooked by rumors of coyotes and uneven terrain that twisted ankles. Ethan's nightly treks into this wilderness went unnoticed by most, but they were no teenage rebellion. Laura had given him a task, one she described as vital to their survival. She spoke in hushed tones about a danger from her past, a shadowy figure who could unravel their perfect life. Ethan, raised to trust his mother implicitly, didn't question her. He took the shovel, flashlight, and hand-drawn map she provided, his heart pounding not with doubt, but with a son's desire to protect. In a clearing half a mile from their home, hidden by a curtain of pines, Ethan began digging. The pit grew slowly, each spadeful of earth a testament to his obedience. Laura visited occasionally, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness as she inspected his progress. She never raised her voice, but her instructions were precise. Deeper, wider, no traces left behind. Ethan worked in silence, the only sounds the crunch of soil and his own labored breathing. By November, the pit was 6 feet deep, its edges smoothed to avoid collapse. Laura provided a tarp to cover it, weighted with stones, and told Ethan to keep it hidden. The town remained oblivious, though small clues emerged. A jogger reported finding a rusted shovel near the wood's edge, its handle worn smooth. Another resident heard faint sobs one night, carried on the wind, but dismissed it as an animal. Ethan's behavior shifted noticeably. His grades slipped from A's to C's, and he quit the soccer team, citing exhaustion. At the animal shelter, he stopped playing with the kittens, instead sitting in a corner, staring at the floor. Volunteers whispered about his hollow eyes and trembling hands, but no one connected it to the woods. Laura, meanwhile, maintained her flawless facade, baking pies for the PTA and organizing the annual holiday toy drive. Only Ethan knew the weight of her secret. It was eroding him from within. In early 2025, a new resident arrived in Willow Creek, stirring the town's sleepy rhythm. Daniel Kline, a wiry man in his late 40s with a salt and pepper beard, rented a modest cabin near the woods. He kept to himself, driving a beat-up pickup and spending evenings on his porch with a book. His arrival coincided with a subtle shift in Laura's demeanor. She watched him from her living room window, her knuckles white as she gripped the curtains. Ethan noticed her unease, but didn't ask questions Laura had trained him not to. She began to speak of Daniel as a threat, her voice low and urgent, claiming he was connected to the danger she'd warned about. Daniel, unaware of the Harpers' fixation, went about his routine. He hiked the trails near his cabin, often pausing to sketch the landscape in a worn notebook. Ethan, under Laura's orders, began tailing him, slipping through the woods with practiced stealth. Daniel sensed he was being watched, his head turning sharply at the snap of a twig, but he never caught sight of Ethan's lanky frame. The town, meanwhile, began to buzz with speculation about Daniel. An anonymous post on the community's online forum claimed he had a criminal record petty theft years ago in another state. Laura, ever calculated, fueled these rumors at the grocery store and church picnics, her voice dripping with concern as she hinted at Daniel's shady past. The plot thickened when a private investigator named Rachel Holt arrived in Willow Creek. She checked into the local motel, her briefcase stuffed with files. Rachel wasn't interested in Daniel, but in Laura. She asked pointed questions at the diner, probing about a woman named Claire Voss, wanted for fraud in Ohio. Locals shrugged, unaware that Claire Voss was Laura Harper, who had fled her old life. A decade earlier, Rachel's presence rattled Laura, who doubled down on her plan. She told Ethan the pit needed to be ready soon, her eyes glinting with a mix of fear and resolve. Ethan, sleep-deprived and haunted, nodded, his loyalty to his mother unwavering despite the growing knot in his stomach. On a frigid February night in 2025, with clouds smothering the stars, Laura's plan reached its breaking point. Ethan waited. In the woods, his breath visible in the icy air, a shovel clutched in his gloved hands. Laura had convinced him that Daniel was a predator, a man who would destroy their family if not stopped. She painted vivid pictures of danger, blackmail, violence, ruin, until Ethan's fear of losing her outweighed his moral compass. Laura's manipulation was seamless, her words wrapping around Ethan like a vice, exploiting his devotion to her. Daniel, unaware of the trap, took his usual evening walk, his boots crunching on the frozen trail. Ethan, hidden behind a cluster of pines, called out, his voice trembling with a fabricated plea for help. Daniel, ever the Good Samaritan, followed the sound deeper into the woods. The attack was swift and silent. Ethan, driven by a mix of terror and loyalty, struck Daniel with the shovel, the impact echoing in the stillness. Daniel crumpled, his sketchbook falling into the dirt. Ethan dragged the body to the pit, his hands shaking as he covered it with the tarp and shoveled earth over it. Laura watched from a distance, her silhouette barely visible, her face a mask of cold determination. The next morning, Laura baked blueberry muffins and delivered them to neighbors, her smile radiant. Ethan, however, was unraveling. He barely slept, his dreams filled with Daniel's lifeless eyes. At school, he sat through classes in a daze, his pencil snapping in his hand during a math test. Rachel, the private investigator, grew closer to the truth. inquiries leading her to Laura's hospital workplace, where coworkers mentioned her secretive nature and frequent unexplained absences. The final twist came when Rachel uncovered Laura's true identity: Claire Voss, a con artist who had swindled thousands in Ohio and was linked to the disappearance of a former associate. Daniel, it turned out, was her old partner, not a threat, but a witness to her crimes. By March 2025, Willow Creek's illusion of safety shattered. Daniel's absence raised alarms when his landlord reported him missing, his cabin untouched for weeks. The police, tipped off by Rachel's findings, searched the Harper home, finding a locked drawer in Laura's bedroom filled with fake IDs and old newspaper clippings about Claire Voss. Ethan, consumed by guilt, broke under questioning. Tears streaming down his face, he led detectives to the woods, where cadaver dogs uncovered Daniel's body in the pit. The town reeled, neighbors gathering in hushed groups, unable to reconcile the Harpers' wholesome image with the horror of murder. Laura's arrest was a spectacle. Handcuffed in her driveway, she maintained an eerie calm, denying everything, even as evidence mounted. Ethan's confession revealed the depth of her manipulation. Laura had convinced him Daniel was a monster, exploiting his love to make him her weapon. The final revelation stunned everyone. Daniel wasn't a random target, but Laura's former accomplice in her fraud schemes. He had come to Willow Creek not to expose her, but to start over, unaware she saw him as a liability. Laura had orchestrated the entire tragedy, using Ethan as her pawn to silence the one person who could unravel her new life. The documentary closes with Ethan in a juvenile detention center, staring out a barred window, his future uncertain. Laura sits in a cell, her once perfect facade replaced by the cold stare of Claire Voss, a woman who sacrificed her son to protect her secrets. Willow Creek struggles to heal, its trust in community shattered. The woods now a grim reminder of a mother's betrayal and a son's blind devotion. Asterisk.